Because of her brother's illness, Olivia Hart took a tutoring job she never would have considered otherwise. Helping out a spoiled high school senior named Chase Montgomery. He was infamous across campus for being stubborn, rebellious, and impossible to deal with. Olivia thought it would just be a temporary gig to earn some quick money, but nothing turned out to be that simple. From the moment they met, Chase didn't hold back. He closed the space between them so casually, like he already knew her. His sister's ex-boyfriend. Seriously? He leaned in, close, warm breath brushing against her ear. Startled, Olivia shoved him away. "Try talking like a normal person. No need to get all up in my space," she snapped. But Chase only smiled, and the more time they spent together, the more he pushed the line between student and teacher. Until eventually, he didn't even try to hide the way he felt about her. As their complicated bond began to evolve into something undeniably tender, Olivia uncovered a devastating secret. Chase wasn't Richard Montgomery's biological son. Suddenly, all of Chase's heartfelt confessions, all the walls he'd let fall, none of it felt simple anymore. The Montgomery family had secrets powerful enough to ruin lives. Now Olivia had to decide. Was the connection she shared with Chase worth stepping into the chaos of his world? If you love emotional, heartwarming stories, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Let's dive into a tale that will stir your heart and stay with you long after the last word. It all started with two strange phone calls. Frustrated and confused, Olivia Hart stormed out of the office in the middle of her overtime shift and drove straight to Montgomery Academy, a prestigious private high school. By the time she arrived, the place was nearly deserted. Classes had ended, and the long corridors were eerily silent. The only person in sight was a young man dressed head to toe in black, leaning against a wall near the entrance. His head was bowed as he flicked a lighter on and off, the tiny flame briefly illuminating his face before disappearing into the dark again. He had that look. Gritty, stylish, dangerously self-assured, the kind of effortless cool that made her heart stutter, even though she hated herself for noticing. The anger inside her simmered down just a little. Olivia approached quietly, her voice calm but firm. "Excuse me, can I ask you something?" The boy lifted his head slowly. The hallway light hit his face. His features were sharp, elegant, almost unreal. But it was his eyes that caught her off guard. Lazy, seductive, with a careless charm that seemed to draw people in whether they wanted it or not. She froze. He was chewing gum, one corner of his mouth curled into a smug smirk. "So you're here," he said. "Stepmom." "Stepmom?" The word blindsided her. What the hell was this kid talking about? That's when she noticed the crooked student ID clipped to his chest. A student. High school. Her whole body went rigid. Her eyes narrowed. "Where did you get my phone number?" she demanded. Even before she finished, she already knew. This was the voice from that second call, the one that had threatened to leak her personal info if she didn't come. He had rattled off her job title, her home address, her bank account, and, God help her, even her measurements, like he was reading from a file. And yet, standing here, the kid didn't flinch. He didn't deny a thing. In fact, he looked downright entertained. "You're my father's personal assistant, right?" he said with a shrug. "Trying to work your way into a higher position? Well, here I am, calling you first. Thought you'd be thrilled." Olivia's hands clenched into fists. "Do you even hear yourself? I don't know you. I don't care about your father. And leaking someone's private information is a crime." She couldn't believe this. Was a high schooler really trying to intimidate her? But he wasn't fazed. Not even a little. Straightening up, He crossed his arms and said coldly, "Richard Montgomery is my father number, 0.3 number." The name hit her like a punch. Richard Montgomery, her boss, the founder and CEO of the Montgomery Group, a man she respected, and frankly, feared just a little. There was no way she'd forget his name. So this cocky little punk. This was Chase Montgomery, the notorious heir. The one everyone in the Colemans whispered about, but no one had ever seen. Well, she was seeing him now, and she wanted to slap that smirk right off his face. "I'm your father's administrative assistant," she said through gritted teeth. "I earned that job through hard work, not my body. So don't you dare disrespect me just because you're some rich kid with attitude." She spun on her heel, ready to leave, but a voice called after her. "Excuse me, Miss Hart?" She turned to see a young teacher in glasses approaching. He smiled politely. "Sorry to bother you. Are you Chase Montgomery's parent or guardian? I need a quick word." Her mouth fell open. That voice, it was the same one from the first call. The one that said his son had gotten into a fight, and someone needed to come deal with it. The moment Olivia spotted him, her anger flared right back up. Grinding her teeth, she snapped at the teacher standing nearby. "Sir, I'm not his parent." The teacher blinked, visibly thrown off. "Oh, my apologies," he muttered, glancing between her and the boy slouched against the wall. Chase Montgomery leaned lazily against the brick like he had no bones in his body, watching them both with bored, half-lidded eyes. Then he drawled, "She works for my father. Whatever it is, just tell her. She works for my father." The way he said it made Olivia's skin crawl. There was something off about it. Like the words carried more meaning than they should have. When the teacher looked back at her, the warmth in his face disappeared, replaced with suspicion, and maybe even a hint of contempt. Olivia forced herself to smile politely, tamping down the heat in her chest. "I'm just Mr. Montgomery's assistant. I don't have the authority to make decisions about his son. If you'll excuse me." She turned to leave. As she passed by Chase, she caught him watching her. With an unreadable expression, as if he were quietly amused by her reaction, she shot him a glare in return, but didn't say another word. As soon as she exited the building, she dialed the Montgomery Group's executive office. To her surprise, the executive assistant said, "Mr. Montgomery won't be able to return for the time being. He's instructed you to handle the situation with Chase personally. Whatever needs to be paid. Just make sure it doesn't escalate." Olivia hung up, staring at the phone like it had betrayed her. Why did she always have to get involved? After taking a few deep breaths to steady herself, she went back inside. The final verdict? She had to settle the matter. By writing a check for $100,000. $100,000 for a single punch. That's what Chase's temper cost. To someone like him, it was just another day. But for her, it was staggering. Olivia had never in her life seen money thrown around like that. Once the situation was resolved, Chase sauntered outside. Like he owned the world, and climbed into the back seat of a sleek black town car. Olivia reluctantly got in on the passenger side, but before she could even sit properly, the back of her seat jolted. He'd kicked it hard. She turned, startled, locking eyes with him. His expression was ice. "Get out!" She swallowed. "Mr. Blake, your father's assistant, told me to make sure you got home safely. Direct orders." If it weren't for her boss's very specific instructions, there was no way she'd be putting up with this brat. Chase didn't care. He kicked the seat again, his jaw tightening. Even the driver glanced back, nervous. "Miss, I suggest you step out. When the young master gets in this mood, nobody can calm him down." Olivia sighed. Fantastic. Even the staff were terrified of him. She opened the door and got out. As she stood in the pouring rain, Chase rolled down the window and grinned, eyes sparkling with mischief. "Know your place," he said. "Don't go chasing things that don't belong to you." Then he blew out a puff of cigarette smoke. Each word a warning, each syllable deliberate. Olivia was shaking with rage. She slammed the door shut with a loud bang, trying to release even a fraction of the fury building inside her. "Just because I work for your father doesn't mean I want to marry him," she muttered under her breath. What kind of delusional psycho even says something like that? Seconds later, the skies opened up. Rain poured down in sheets, soaking her in an instant. From the dry warmth of the car, Chase watched her through the open window, that same infuriating smirk on his face. His eyes curved into playful crescents, mocking her as if this were all just a game. Olivia turned away, teeth clenched. She called a cab and climbed in the moment it arrived. "I need to follow that black car," she told the driver. The cabbie lit up with excitement, apparently thrilled by the idea of a chase. He showed off his best Fast and Furious moves, trying to keep up with the other vehicle. When they finally pulled into the Montgomery estate, a sprawling private community nestled behind iron gates, Olivia let out a sigh of relief. If Chase had turned off in a different direction, she'd have had nothing to report. Later that night, when she called the executive office to file her update, the assistant on the line replied simply, "Tough job." That was it. No sympathy. Just 2 words. She hung up, drenched and exhausted, and swore to herself she'd never answer a mystery number again. The next morning, Olivia sneezed 3 times in a row while cursing Chase Montgomery's name. If it weren't for him, she wouldn't have caught a cold. If it weren't for him, she wouldn't have been late for work and lost her monthly bonus. And if the charming, respected Mr. Montgomery really was as kind as everyone said, how the hell did he end up with a son like that? The company was thriving under Mr. Montgomery's leadership, but if Chase was his successor, they might as well start preparing a backup plan now. As she sat in her office, still nursing a mild fever, her phone rang again. It was the executive office. She answered cautiously. After the call ended, Olivia was left speechless, phone pressed to her ear, as if she hadn't quite registered what she'd heard. The deep, composed voice of Richard Montgomery echoed in her mind. "Miss Hart, I was told you were valedictorian of your graduating class. I'm not asking for much. Just help my son pass his college entrance exams. I'll pay $1 million if he gets in." Think it over. $1 million. She didn't need to think. Even if she worked her current job for the next 80 years, she wouldn't see that kind of money. But 1 year, just one, and her brother's surgery would be covered. Her own dreams could finally come true. This was it, the chance of a lifetime, and Olivia Hart wasn't going to let it slip away. Her mind had never worked so fast. Even if she got promoted and earned $10,000 a month, Olivia Hart would have to work for 80 years just to make that kind of money. But now, just 1 year. 1 year tutoring Chase Montgomery, and she'd have $1 million. Her brother's surgery would finally be possible. Her dreams, once put on hold, could finally come true. An opportunity like this would never come twice in a lifetime. There was no way Olivia could, or would, refuse. She was about to get rich. That same evening, after work, she hauled her luggage up the hill to the Montgomery estate. Her modest background had always limited her imagination, but even so, she was stunned. The mansion was nestled halfway up a wooded slope, a sprawling modern palace of glass, stone, and money. She was given a room on the 2nd floor, the very end of the hallway. Word was, the entire floor belonged to Chase. The moment she opened the door, she was hit by the scent of luxury. Everything in the room, from the wall paneling to the custom closet hardware, screamed wealth. She didn't even have time to admire it all. Instead, she dropped her suitcase and hurried to unpack her arsenal of books. Everything she'd bought to prepare for senior year tutoring. These were her tools. This was her shot at that million. Then a cold voice cut through the air. "Who said you could come into my house?" He was here. The brat. The little devil himself. Olivia turned and saw Chase leaning against the door frame, a cigarette dangling from his fingers, eyes sharp and unreadable. She drew a deep breath, forcing a polite smile. "Nice to see you, Chase. Starting today, I'll be your tutor." He was worth $1 million now. She had to treat him like spring sunshine, no matter how much she wanted to strangle him. Chase raised a brow. "Didn't you say you were my dad's assistant? Since when did you become a tutor?" He walked toward her slowly and blew a puff of smoke straight into her face. Olivia coughed violently, eyes watering. Before she could recover, he kicked over her suitcase. "Get out," he said. Olivia wiped her face, stood her ground, and met his gaze. "Your father hired me. I'm not going anywhere." He was $1 million. As long as she thought of him as cash, she could endure anything. But she'd underestimated him. With a flick of his wrist, Chase grabbed one of her books and lit it on fire. He dropped it into her open suitcase. Flames surged instantly. She froze, stunned. His eyes gleamed with malice as the blaze roared higher and higher. By the time she lunged forward to stop it, the fire alarm had already gone off. House staff burst in and extinguished the flames in under 10 minutes, but it was too late. Her clothes were gone, her suitcase charred, and the room a disaster zone. Chase had vanished. That was his opening move. Her first test. Barely holding her rage in, Olivia asked to switch rooms. One of the housemaids, a girl with a round face and overly sweet smile, replied flatly, "I'm sorry, there are no rooms available." Her tone was far from apologetic. Olivia frowned. "Isn't the entire second floor empty?" The maid didn't answer. Instead, she turned and began whispering to another housemaid just a few feet away. Loud enough for Olivia to hear. "This is the Montgomery estate. You think just anyone can move in here? If she wants to be the next Mrs. Montgomery, she better get past the young master first." "Girls these days," the other maid scoffed. "They'll do anything for money. No shame at all." Olivia didn't flinch. She'd heard worse back in her hometown. She'd survived crueler taunts in college. These petty games wouldn't scare her off. She was here for one thing, that $1 million payday. From the corner of her eye, she noticed someone leaning casually against the second-floor balcony. Chase. Cigarette still in his mouth. That smirk still on his lips. So he'd told them to say those things. He wanted to chase her out using gossip and shame. Too bad for him. Olivia Hart had heard worse and lived to tell the tale. She pulled out her phone and called Richard Montgomery directly. Lifting her chin, she looked right at Chase and smiled. "Good evening, Mr. Montgomery. It's Olivia." Chase didn't react, but the two gossipy maids went pale the moment they heard his father's voice crackle through the speakerphone. "Zid." The deep, composed baritone of Richard Montgomery filled the room. "Miss Hart, you have full authority over Chase's affairs. If anyone gives you trouble, remove them." The silence that followed was thick enough to choke on. Even Olivia was caught off guard. She hadn't expected that much power. Still holding the cool, she glanced at the two stunned housemaids and said sweetly, "You both can take 2 months off, starting now." Neither dared argue. They bowed and left. Olivia watched them go, then looked back at Chase, who was now descending the staircase. He blew another stream of smoke in her direction. "You must be talented. Got my old man wrapped around your finger already?" Last night, she hadn't understood why Chase was so convinced she was trying to seduce his father. Maybe because she was the only female assistant? Earlier, she'd asked the senior assistant, Ethan Blake, about it, but he turned pale and refused to answer. Whatever secrets were hiding in this house, she didn't care so long as they didn't stop her from doing her job. Without hesitating, she snatched the cigarette from Chase's mouth and tossed it in the trash. I'm your tutor now. Your father respects me, so you'd better learn some manners. First class starts at 8. Olivia didn't want to fire anyone. Not if she didn't have to. They were employees, just doing their jobs. But the two maids who'd mocked her earlier clearly weren't happy about their sudden leave of absence. Still, they backed down and left quietly, under orders. Moments later, Chase strolled down the staircase, dragging on his cigarette. He blew a lazy stream of smoke directly into her face. You've got some skills, he said coolly. Didn't take long to get the old man to play guard dog for you. Last night, she'd kept wondering why he was so convinced she was seducing his father. Was it just because she was the only female assistant on Richard Montgomery's staff? She'd even tried asking Ethan Blake, the senior executive assistant, about it earlier that day, but the moment she brought it up, his face turned rigid. He refused to say a word. Fine. Whatever secrets this house was hiding, she didn't care. As long as they didn't get in the way of her earning that $1 million. When she caught Chase lighting another cigarette, she didn't hesitate. She marched straight up to him, grabbed it out of his mouth, and tossed it into the trash can. I'm your tutor, she said firmly. Your father respects me, and smoking in someone's face, that's not just rude. It's unacceptable. Class starts at 8 tonight. Richard Montgomery clearly knew what kind of son he had. If he wasn't willing to back her up, who else would dare take this job? She'd done her homework before accepting the offer. Rumor had it that one retired professor from a top-tier university had tried tutoring Chase and ended up in the hospital with 2 stents in his heart. Another elite teacher had his leg broken during a literature lesson gone wrong. Ever since then, nobody had dared apply for the job. Chase narrowed his eyes, voice cold. Do you really think you're my stepmom or something? You should take a good look in the mirror before dreaming that big. The way he said it. Sharp, icy, brutal. Froze her in place. Then he turned and walked away, heading upstairs with the kind of confidence that only came from never being told no. Olivia stood there for a long moment, stunned. Once, years ago, she had said something similar to someone else, and she'd paid for it, with bruises and welts. At exactly 8 p.m., she gathered her books and knocked on Chase's door. It wasn't locked. Come in, he called. She stepped inside and immediately stopped. His room was enormous, over 1,000 square feet. But aside from a king-size bed, a shelf of books, and a single couch, it was almost empty. It didn't look like a teenager's room at all. It looked like a minimalist luxury suite, sterile and hollow. The sound of running water came from the bathroom. Then the door opened. Chase walked out with nothing but a towel slung low around his hips, droplets of water trailing down his chest. He strolled across the room like it was the most natural thing in the world. Olivia snapped her gaze down to her textbook. Focus. Just read. But he didn't make it easy. He dropped down beside her on the narrow sofa, his 6'2" frame folding in close. The space instantly shrank. Too close. Way too close. Uncomfortable, she started to rise, but he caught her wrist and tugged her off balance. She fell against him, her hand landing flat on his bare, wet chest. Try moving, he murmured, voice low. She froze. When she looked up, his amber-colored eyes were locked on her. His breath was warm against her face, and those eyes, lazily flirtatious, seemed to shine even in the dim light. So, he said, how's the view? Like she'd been shocked by static. Olivia jerked back and stood up, brushing herself off with a dry laugh. I've seen plucked chickens that look more impressive. What did he think? 2 lingering stares and she'd fall for him. Please. She didn't chase boys. She chased money. Chase leaned back against the couch, lazily smirking. Name your price. She blinked. Excuse me? How much do I need to pay to get you to leave this house? 50 grand? 100? 200? Before she could answer, he raised the bid again. 200,000. Just like that. A high schooler, throwing out 6-figure offers without blinking. God, rich people really were different, but she couldn't accept. Wouldn't accept. He flipped his hair with a flick of his fingers. The smirk vanished. His voice turned cold again. Stepmom, don't be greedy. There it was again, that word. It hit her like a slap. If this kept going, there was no way the two of them could coexist peacefully. Olivia clenched her fists and glared at him. I'm your teacher. If you ever call me that again, I won't let it slide. She'd clearly overestimated her patience. Tonight's lesson? Completely ruined. She stormed toward the door, only to be ambushed by a dog. A massive black Labrador barreled toward her, tongue out, and licked her ankle. Ah! She shrieked, her entire body stiffening, goosebumps everywhere. On instinct, she turned and grabbed onto the nearest thing she could reach. Chase! He didn't even flinch. His face was as blank as ice. She tried to pull away, but the dog kept coming, now nibbling on her toes. In a panic, Olivia clung tightly to Chase, scrambling up and wrapping her arms around his shoulders. She latched on at the waist, instinctively lifting her feet off the floor, just out of reach of the dog's snapping jaws. The Labrador couldn't reach her anymore. She exhaled in relief. Okay, put the dog away, and I'll get down. But Chase stood frozen, body stiff, jaw clenched. Get off, he muttered. Move the damn dog first. The dog, oblivious, barked gleefully, circling them. Olivia, still clinging to him, started to shift her weight, and that's when the worst happened. The towel around Chase's waist came loose. It slipped, and then dropped, right over the dog's head. Olivia gasped. Chase stood there, wearing nothing but a pair of tight, snowflake print boxers. His face was like stone, but the tips of his ears burned red. He was furious. And mortified. And she had definitely not meant to see what she just saw. I swear it wasn't on purpose. Olivia started, backing away in a blur of apologies. She slid off him as fast as she could. The dog, confused and blindfolded by terry cloth, stumbled around while she fled the room, heart pounding and face on fire. The whole night had been a disaster. Chest heaving, Olivia leaned against the wall in the hallway, trying to calm down. If she had known the Montgomery family kept a dog in the house, she might have reconsidered this job. No. She still would have said yes. $1 million. She'd deal with it. And now that she'd fired the 2 mocking housemaids, no one else in the Montgomery estate dared to cross her. Except Chase. He'd clearly found her weakness, and he didn't hesitate to use it. For the entire week that followed, every time Olivia showed up for a study session, Chase let the dog loose. She'd scream, he'd smirk, and no progress would be made. Fed up and emotionally drained, she let her best friend Bella Quinn drag her to a nightclub after work. The music was thumping, people dancing wildly under strobe lights. It was the kind of chaotic energy Olivia had never experienced before. She stuck close to Bella, trying not to look too awkward. And that's when fate decided to kick her in the gut. Again. Across the bar, she spotted someone familiar sitting in the shadows, Chase. At first, she thought she was hallucinating. Maybe the stress and alcohol were making her see things. But no, it was him. He was tucked into the darkest booth in the corner, cigarette in one hand, glass of whiskey in the other, dressed in all black. If the flashing lights hadn't hit his face at just the right moment, no one would have even noticed he was there. His friends were loud, laughing, shouting. But he wasn't part of the fun. He just sat there, shoulders hunched, staring at the table, completely alone in the middle of it all. How could someone so loud, so cocky, look that empty? Olivia took a sip of her drink, trying to shake it off. Next to her, Bella's eyes lit up. "Hot guy at 9 o'clock, she whispered. "I'm going in." Before Olivia could stop her, Bella had already made a beeline for the booth. Right toward Chase. "No, wait," Olivia hissed, grabbing her friend's arm. "That one's off limits." "Why?" Bella blinked. "He's a high schooler." Bella's jaw dropped. "What?" Olivia sighed and nodded toward him. "That's Chase Montgomery. I'm his tutor." "The Chase Montgomery?" Bella gaped. Before Olivia could answer, she was already weaving through the crowd. She passed the boys at Chase's table. They all turned to look at her, surprised. One of them grinned. "Hey, gorgeous! Looking to dance with us?" "Let's start with a drink," another said. "Come on, join us." Olivia raised a brow. "Are you even old enough to be in here?" They paused, uncertain how to answer. "If you are," she said coolly, "then sure. I'll drink with you." Her voice cut through the haze, and Chase finally looked up. The moment he saw her, his brows pulled together, his eyes went cold. "You following me?" The nerve of this kid. One of his buddies laughed. "Hey, Chase. Who's the babe? She a fan or something?" "Man's got fans in school and in clubs now." Chase took a slow sip of whiskey and muttered under his breath. "They're not here for me. They want the money that comes with my last name." The atmosphere turned tense. The guys went quiet and turned to Olivia, their eyes suddenly judgmental. Honestly, she should have been relieved he didn't call her stepmom this time. Progress? But she couldn't just let him drink himself into a stupor. He was only 17, and she had a contract to fulfill. $1 million depended on his grades, not his liver. Fueled by frustration and maybe a bit of wine, Olivia marched over and grabbed Chase's wrist. "We're leaving." For a second, he didn't move. Then suddenly, he yanked his arm free and shoved her back. "Enough," he snapped. "You're not my mother. That's my house." "Not yours." Olivia shot Chase a hard look, then turned and walked straight into the administrator's office. The moment she stepped inside, Miss Cook, one of the teachers, waved her over with urgency. "Please, talk to him. If Chase doesn't apologize to the disciplinary officer, this is going to end up on his permanent record." Olivia's heart sank. The Dean of Discipline. A balding man with a stiff jaw and a permanently judgmental stare, looked up as she approached, chin raised with barely concealed disdain. "You, his guardian?" he asked, voice clipped. "Let me tell you something. This isn't the first time Chase Montgomery's caused trouble. Fights, skipping class. I let it slide because his father donates to the school. But cheating? In the final exams? We won't tolerate that." He leaned back, arms crossed. "Take him home. He's done here." Olivia froze for a second. The bluntness shocked her. She turned slowly, glancing at Chase still leaning lazily against the doorframe, arms crossed, eyebrow arched like he didn't care at all. "Let's go," he said casually. She ignored him. Instead, Olivia faced the dean again and asked calmly, "Do you have any proof that he cheated?" She wasn't trying to defend him blindly, but based on everything she knew about Chase Montgomery, his pride, his arrogance, he wouldn't cheat. Not because he couldn't, but because he'd never stooped to that level. He thought cheating was beneath him. The dean scoffed and slapped 2 test papers down on the desk. Here, English and math, both passed. You think that's possible for a student who's failed all year? Olivia picked them up and flipped through the pages. Her heart jumped. They were his, and he'd actually passed. She felt her chest swell. Not just with relief, but pride. He'd done it. After all the chaos, the missed lessons, the fights, the attitude, he'd actually learned something. She pulled out her phone and showed the dean video clips of her tutoring sessions with Chase, full of late nights and handwritten notes. The dean blinked in surprise, clearly not expecting that level of documentation. Eventually, he cleared his throat and muttered, "Well, seems I owe him an apology." Chase said nothing, but Olivia caught it. The faintest curve at the edge of his mouth. He was smug, still cool on the outside, but she could tell. He was proud, just too stubborn to show it. On the way out, he didn't say a word. Just opened the door of his luxury car and tilted his head at her. "Get in." Olivia hesitated. "Price of the ride?" she asked with a smirk. "Dinner," he replied. She agreed without thinking. Maybe they were finally getting somewhere. But 5 bites into her overpriced steak, she regretted everything. Over $150 a plate. She stared at the check in stunned silence, half her month's salary gone in a single meal. Walking home would have been less painful. Across the table, Chase grinned. "Regretting it now?" Olivia forced a laugh. "Regret? Dining with a Montgomery heir? It's an honor." She smiled through gritted teeth, crumpling the receipt in her hand. She'd be submitting it to Mr. Blake tonight with a request for reimbursement. After all, escorting the Montgomery heir counted as work, didn't it? Then Chase leaned in. Too close. His warm breath grazed her cheek as his amber eyes locked onto hers. "You're lying." His voice was playful, almost teasing. But the heat in her face was very real. She pushed him away. "Try standing a little farther when you talk." But he caught her wrist, grip firm. She tried to pull back, but he only held tighter. If someone added romantic music to the scene, it would have looked like a climax from some sappy high school drama. Then, "Olivia?" A familiar voice rang out behind her. She turned and instantly stiffened. Vanessa Sterling. She stood in a bold red dress, lips curled into a smug smile, eyes sharp with condescension. Well, it is you. I wasn't sure at first." Her voice was syrupy sweet, laced with cruelty. "You must be doing well, huh? Fancy dinner at this place? I seem to remember you living off free soup at the college cafeteria." Olivia smiled, tense but polite. "I work now. I can afford dinner." Vanessa's eyes glinted with satisfaction. "I have a boyfriend now," she said, like it was breaking news. "Know him, actually. Want to come say hi?" Before Olivia could answer, Vanessa turned and waved someone over. A man stepped up beside her, his tailored suit crisp, his face radiant with charm. Vanessa slipped her arm around his and said sweetly, "Baby, this is Olivia Hart. My college roommate. She came from some rural town." Just like a little sparrow flying into the city. Olivia's heart dropped. Nathan Cole. The boy she'd secretly loved all through college. He looked stunned for half a second, but quickly masked it with a smile. She'd even tried asking Ethan Blake, the senior executive assistant, about it earlier that day, but the moment she brought it up, his face turned rigid. He refused to say a word. Fine. Whatever secrets this house was hiding, she didn't care. as long as they didn't get in the way of her earning that million. When she caught Chase lighting another cigarette, she didn't hesitate. She marched straight up to him, grabbed it out of his mouth, and tossed it into the trash can. "I'm your tutor," she said firmly. "Your father respects me. And smoking in someone's face? That's not just rude. It's unacceptable." Class starts at 8 tonight. Richard Montgomery clearly knew what kind of son he had. If he wasn't willing to back her up, who else would dare take this job? She'd done her homework before accepting the offer. Rumor had it that one retired professor from a top-tier university had tried tutoring Chase and ended up in the hospital with 2 stents in his heart. Another elite teacher had his leg broken during a literature lesson gone wrong. Ever since then, nobody had dared apply for the job. Chase narrowed his eyes, voice cold. "Do you really think you're my stepmom or something?" Al should take a good look in the mirror before dreaming that big. The way he said it. Sharp, icy, brutal. Froze her in place. Then he turned and walked away, heading upstairs with the kind of confidence that only came from never being told no. Olivia stood there for a long moment, stunned. Once, years ago, she had said something similar to someone else, and she'd paid for it, with bruises and welts. At exactly 8 p.m., she gathered her books and knocked on Chase's door. It wasn't locked. "Come in," he called. She stepped inside and immediately stopped. His room was enormous, over 1,000 square feet, but aside from a king-size bed, a shelf of books, and a single couch, it was almost empty. It didn't look like a teenager's room at all. It looked like a minimalist luxury suite, sterile and hollow. The sound of running water came from the bathroom. Then the door opened. Chase walked out with nothing but a towel slung low around his hips, droplets of water trailing down his chest. He strolled across the room like it was the most natural thing in the world. Olivia snapped her gaze down to her textbook. "Focus, just read." But he didn't make it easy. He dropped down beside her on the narrow sofa, his 6'2" frame folding in close. The space instantly shrank. Too close. Way too close. Uncomfortable, she started to rise, but he caught her wrist and tugged her off balance. She fell against him, her hand landing flat on his bare, wet chest. "Try moving," he murmured, voice low. She froze. When she looked up, his amber-colored eyes were locked on her. His breath was warm against her face, and those eyes, lazily flirtatious, seemed to shine even in the dim light. "So," he said, "how's the view?" Like she'd been shocked by static, Olivia jerked back and stood up, brushing herself off with a dry laugh. "I've seen plucked chickens that look more impressive." What did he think? 2 lingering stares and she'd fall for him. "Please." She didn't chase boys, she chased money. Chase leaned back against the couch, lazily smirking. "Name your price." She blinked. "Excuse me? How much do I need to pay to get you to leave this house? 50 grand? 100? 200? Before she could answer, he raised the bid again. 200,000, just like that. A high schooler, throwing out 6-figure offers without blinking. God, rich people really were different. But she couldn't accept, wouldn't accept. He flipped his hair with a flick of his fingers. The smirk vanished. His voice turned cold again. "Stepmom, don't be greedy." There it was again. That word. It hit her like a slap. If this kept going, there was no way the two of them could coexist peacefully. Olivia clenched her fists and glared at him. "I'm your teacher. If you ever call me that again, I won't let it slide." She'd clearly overestimated her patience. Tonight's lesson? Completely ruined. She stormed toward the door, only to be ambushed by a dog. A massive black Labrador barreled toward her, tongue out, and licked her ankle. "Ah!" she shrieked, her entire body stiffening, goosebumps everywhere. On instinct, she turned and grabbed onto the nearest thing she could reach. Chase! He didn't even flinch. His face was as blank as ice. She tried to pull away, but the dog kept coming, now nibbling on her toes. In a panic, Olivia clung tightly to Chase, scrambling up and wrapping her arms around his shoulders. She latched on at the waist, instinctively lifting her feet off the floor, just out of reach of the dog's snapping jaws. The Labrador couldn't reach her anymore. She exhaled in relief. Okay, put the dog away, and I'll get down. But Chase stood frozen, body stiff, jaw clenched. Get off, he muttered. Move the damn dog first. The dog, oblivious, barked gleefully, circling them. Olivia, still clinging to him, started to shift her weight. And that's when the worst happened. The towel around Chase's waist came loose. It slipped, and then dropped, right over the dog's head. Olivia gasped. Chase stood there, wearing nothing but a pair of tight, snowflake print boxers. His face was like stone, but the tips of his ears burned red. He was furious and mortified, and she had definitely not meant to see what she just saw. I swear it wasn't on purpose. Olivia started, backing away in a blur of apologies. She slid off him as fast as she could. The dog, confused and blindfolded by terry cloth, stumbled around while she fled the room, heart pounding and face on fire. The whole night had been a disaster. Chest heaving, Olivia leaned against the wall in the hallway, trying to calm down. If she had known the Montgomery family kept a dog in the house, she might have reconsidered this job. No. She still would have said yes. $1 million. She'd deal with it. And now that she'd fired the 2 mocking housemaids, no one else in the Montgomery estate dared to cross her. Except Chase. He'd clearly found her weakness, and he didn't hesitate to use it. For the entire week that followed, every time Olivia showed up for a study session, Chase let the dog loose. She'd scream, he'd smirk, and no progress would be made. Fed up and emotionally drained, she let her best friend Bella Quinn drag her to a nightclub after work. The music was thumping, people dancing wildly under strobe lights. It was the kind of chaotic energy Olivia had never experienced before. She stuck close to Bella, trying not to look too awkward, and that's when fate decided to kick her in the gut. Again. Across the bar, she spotted someone familiar, sitting in the shadows. Chase. At first, she thought she was hallucinating. Maybe the stress and alcohol were making her see things, but no, it was him. He was tucked into the darkest booth in the corner, cigarette in one hand, glass of whiskey in the other, dressed in all black. If the flashing lights hadn't hit his face at just the right moment, no one would have even noticed he was there. His friends were loud, laughing, shouting. But he wasn't part of the fun. He just sat there, shoulders hunched, staring at the table, completely alone in the middle of it all. How could someone so loud, so cocky, look that empty? Olivia took a sip of her drink, trying to shake it off. Next to her, Bella's eyes lit up. "Hot guy at 9 o'clock, she whispered. "I'm going in." Before Olivia could stop her, Bella had already made a beeline for the booth. Right toward Chase. "No, wait," Olivia hissed, grabbing her friend's arm. "That one's off limits." "Why?" Bella blinked. "He's a high schooler." Bella's jaw dropped. "What?" Olivia sighed and nodded toward him. "That's Chase Montgomery. I'm his tutor." "The Chase Montgomery?" Bella gaped. Before Olivia could answer, she was already weaving through the crowd. She passed the boys at Chase's table, They all turned to look at her, surprised. One of them grinned. "Hey, gorgeous! Looking to dance with us?" "Let's start with a drink," another said. "Come on, join us." Olivia raised a brow. "Are you even old enough to be in here?" They paused, uncertain how to answer. "If you are," she said coolly, "then sure. I'll drink with you." Her voice cut through the haze, and Chase finally looked up. The moment he saw her, his brows pulled together, his eyes went cold. "You following me?" The nerve of this kid. One of his buddies laughed. "Hey, Chase!" "Who's the babe? She a fan or something?" "Man's got fans in school and in clubs now." Chase took a slow sip of whiskey and muttered under his breath. "They're not here for me. They want the money that comes with my last name." The atmosphere turned tense. The guys went quiet and turned to Olivia, their eyes suddenly judgmental. Honestly, she should have been relieved he didn't call her stepmom this time. Progress? But she couldn't just let him drink himself into a stupor. He was only 17, and she had a contract to fulfill. $1 million depended on his grades. Not his liver. Fueled by frustration and maybe a bit of wine, Olivia marched over and grabbed Chase's wrist. "We're leaving." For a second, he didn't move. Then, suddenly, he yanked his arm free and shoved her back. "Enough!" he snapped. "You're not my mother. That's my house." "Not yours." Olivia shot Chase a hard look, then turned and walked straight into the administrator's office. The moment she stepped inside, Miss Cook, one of the teachers, waved her over with urgency. "Please, talk to him. If Chase doesn't apologize to the disciplinary officer, this is going to end up on his permanent record." Olivia's heart sank. The Dean of Discipline, a balding man with a stiff jaw and a permanently judgmental stare, looked up as she approached, chin raised with barely concealed disdain. "You, his guardian?" he asked, voice clipped. "Let me tell you something. This isn't the first time Chase Montgomery's caused trouble. Fights, skipping class. I let it slide because his father donates to the school. But cheating? In the final exams? We won't tolerate that." He leaned back, arms crossed. "Take him home. He's done here." Olivia froze for a second. The bluntness shocked her. She turned slowly, glancing at Chase, still leaning lazily against the doorframe, arms crossed, eyebrow arched like he didn't care at all. "Let's go," he said casually. She ignored him. Instead, Olivia faced the dean again and asked calmly, "Do you have any proof that he cheated?" She wasn't trying to defend him blindly, but based on everything she knew about Chase Montgomery, his pride, his arrogance, he wouldn't cheat. Not because he couldn't, but because he'd never stooped to that level. He thought cheating was beneath him. The dean scoffed and slapped 2 test papers down on the desk. "Here, English and math, both passed. You think that's possible for a student who's failed all year?" Olivia picked them up and flipped through the pages. Her heart jumped. They were his, and he'd actually passed. She felt her chest swell. Not just with relief, but pride. He'd done it. After all the chaos, the missed lessons, the fights, the attitude. He'd actually learned something. She pulled out her phone and showed the dean video clips of her tutoring sessions with Chase, full of late nights and handwritten notes. The dean blinked in surprise, clearly not expecting that level of documentation. Eventually, he cleared his throat and muttered, "Well, seems I owe him an apology." Chase said nothing, but Olivia caught it. The faintest curve at the edge of his mouth. He was smug, still cool on the outside, but she could tell. He was proud, just too stubborn to show it. On the way out, he didn't say a word. Just opened the door of his luxury car and tilted his head at her. Get in. Olivia hesitated. Price of the ride? She asked with a smirk. Dinner, he replied. She agreed without thinking. Maybe they were finally getting somewhere. But 5 bites into her overpriced steak, she regretted everything. Over $150 a plate? She stared at the check in stunned silence. Half her month's salary gone in a single meal. Walking home would have been less painful. Across the table, Chase grinned. Regretting it now? Olivia forced a laugh. Regret? Dining with a Montgomery heir? It's an honor. She smiled through gritted teeth, crumpling the receipt in her hand. She'd be submitting it to Mr. Blake tonight with a request for reimbursement. After all, escorting the Montgomery heir counted as work, didn't it? Then Chase leaned in. Too close. His warm breath grazed her cheek as his amber eyes locked onto hers. You're lying. His voice was playful, almost teasing. But the heat in her face was very real. She pushed him away. Try standing a little farther when you talk. But he caught her wrist, grip firm. She tried to pull back, but he only held tighter. If someone added romantic music to the scene, it would have looked like a climax from some sappy high school drama. Then, Olivia. A familiar voice rang out behind her. She turned and instantly stiffened. Vanessa Sterling. She stood in a bold red dress, lips curled into a smug smile, eyes sharp with condescension. Well, well, it is you. I wasn't sure at first. Her voice was syrupy sweet, laced with cruelty. You must be doing well, huh? Fancy dinner at this place? I seem to remember you living off free soup at the college cafeteria. Olivia smiled, tense but polite. I work now. I can afford dinner. Vanessa's eyes glinted with satisfaction. I have a boyfriend now, she said, like it was breaking news. Him actually. Want to come say hi? Before Olivia could answer, Vanessa turned and waved someone over. A man stepped up beside her, his tailored suit crisp, his face radiant with charm. Vanessa slipped her arm around his and said sweetly, Baby, this is Olivia Hart. My college roommate. She came from some rural town, just like a little sparrow flying into the city. Olivia's heart dropped. Nathan Cole, the boy she'd secretly loved all through college, he looked stunned for half a second, but quickly masked it with a smile. To Olivia, Richard Montgomery had always been a benefactor. Without the Montgomery Foundation, she never would have finished college. But now, if Chase's words were true, could the man she owed so much to be a terrible father? She didn't know what to believe anymore. Chase rose to his feet slowly and looked down at her, his eyes dark and unreadable. Then he smirked, bitter and cold. Go on, little stepmom. Better hurry and comfort your old man. Who knows? By tomorrow, you'll be Mrs. Montgomery. His eyes were cold, sharp as a blade. Olivia lifted her head, locking eyes with that darkness. She was trembling, furious. Chase Montgomery, are you a dog or something? Do you have to bite everyone you see? Once you get into college, I'll be gone. I'll leave this house. I'll walk away from the Montgomery family. And the Montgomery Corporation. You won't have to see me again. Yes, she'd agreed to stay because of the $1 million reward, but it wasn't just about the money. It was her way of repaying the man who changed her life. Later that evening, Richard Montgomery called her into the study. He handed her a check for $100,000. I've seen what you've done for Chase, he said quietly, and how he's changed. I hope you'll keep pushing him. Just as she was about to leave, he added, Miss Hart, you're remarkably good at handling difficult people. Then he smiled. Tightly, unreadable. I want to marry you. What do you say? Olivia stammered, Sir, I just want to be a good assistant. Save enough money to pay for my brother's surgery. That's all. He studied her for a moment, then nodded, smiling faintly. Only when she stepped out of the study did she realize her palms were soaked with sweat. She had genuinely been afraid he might fire her. Or worse. The Montgomery men, father and son, cold on the surface, with fire buried deep underneath. After that, things seemed to quiet down. Richard went on another business trip, and Chase disappeared somewhere after their morning blow-up. The mansion was eerily quiet. That night, Olivia couldn't sleep. She sat on the balcony, staring out at the misty silhouette of the mountain ridge. Her thoughts spun: how to keep Chase focused, how to help him pass, how to keep her emotions out of this. Then, near the backyard pond, she saw a familiar silhouette. Chase. She rushed down but stopped when she saw the floating candles on the water. He was doing it again, remembering his mother. She turned to leave, not wanting to intrude. This was his space, his silence. But then he spoke. "You're here. Why not sit down?" So she stayed. She envied him for that, even when he drove her mad. Then he spoke again. "You're not like the others." She turned. His eyes were bright, distant stars against the night sky. "What do you mean?" she asked, unsure how to take the compliment. "When people see me fight with my father, they all say the same thing. He's your father. Be grateful. He works so hard." His voice was dripping with sarcasm. Olivia's gaze drifted to the lake, where the candles floated like lost souls. And then, memories. Her father, the bottle, the beatings, the screaming, the cold stone floor where she was forced to kneel, her stepsister burning her college acceptance letter, her stepmother's laughter. Pain so vivid, it made her chest ache. Not every father deserves forgiveness. Some fathers didn't earn the title at all. She hugged her knees. Her voice was low, almost to herself. Not every man who fathers a child deserves to be called a dad, whether you forgive him or not. That's your choice. If she didn't know Chase's story, she might have lectured him, might have thought he was just another spoiled heir. But she did know, and she understood. She didn't ask him to forgive Richard, just like she'd never forgive her own father. Her mother had endured a lifetime of suffering for her brother, only to die in that same house, never having escaped it. She looked up into his face. Pale, sharp, beautiful. His eyes were soft now, quiet, still. "Staring at me like that," he said. "You're falling for me, huh?" She let out a soft laugh, and the heaviness began to lift. "Chase, whatever history you have with your father, don't drag me into it, please." Her voice was steady, but her eyes pleaded. Chase didn't back off. He braced his arms around her, effectively caging her in. "I'm not joking, Olivia. I like you." His voice was low, honest. His gaze was intense. Too intense. She panicked and shoved him away. "I know what you're doing," she snapped, "trying to piss off your dad by using me, but I'm telling you again. I have nothing to do with him." She stood up, hands clenched at her sides. "If you ever use me as a pawn again, I swear I'll report it to your father myself. I'm your assistant, not your toy." "I was sober last night, Olivia. I knew exactly what I was doing." Inside, she heard a voice, a weak, broken voice. "Mum." Her heart jumped. Peeking inside, she saw him thrashing in bed, face pale, forehead soaked in sweat. "Don't go, I'm scared." He was dreaming, a nightmare. Olivia hesitated, then stepped inside. She knelt by the bed and wiped his forehead gently with a tissue. "Dad, help me." Suddenly, he grabbed her wrist and yanked her down. She landed on the bed with a gasp, heart racing. But Chase didn't wake. Instead, He curled into her, holding on like she was the last thing keeping him from drowning. She didn't move. His breath was warm against her skin. His chest rose and fell in fast, shallow waves. His entire body trembled. His eyelashes were thick and long, fluttering over flushed cheeks. When he was awake, he looked like the world didn't matter. But now, asleep. He looked young, vulnerable, peaceful. She lifted a hand and softly rubbed his back. Slowly, his breathing calmed. Even the devil had scars, it seemed. She didn't know how long she lay there before finally untangling herself and slipping away. Back outside, she stood under the stars and stared at the sky, dazed. Her chest ached. Not with pain, but something deeper, older. She pulled out her phone and dialed a number she hadn't called in a long time. The next day, after a visit to the bookstore, the butler ran up to greet her. "Miss Hart, Mr. Montgomery is back." She stopped in her tracks. She hadn't expected him to actually return. Not just because of her call last night, not for Chase, but she'd been wrong. Just as she stepped into the grand entryway, voices exploded from the parlor. Richard Montgomery stood there in a short-sleeved button-up, face red with anger. "You're nothing but a disgrace," he bellowed. "I can't believe I raised someone so pathetic." Chase flipped his lighter open and closed in his hand, that usual smug look in his eyes. "If I'm pathetic," he said coolly, "then what does that make you? Rotting garbage?" His voice sliced through the air like a knife. Richard Montgomery's face turned to stone. "You're 18, he said, his voice heavy. "When are you going to start acting like it? Can't you grow up? For yourself? Or for your mother?" Crash! The lighter slipped from Chase's hand and shattered on the marble floor. His face darkened. His eyes turned sharp and dangerous. "Don't mention my mother," he growled. "You're the one who drove her to her death, weren't you? You don't get to talk about her. You lost that right the day she died." Olivia stood frozen, her hand covering her mouth, barely able to breathe. Her boss, the man who had changed her life by funding her college education, was now being accused of driving his wife to her grave? It couldn't be true. Richard looked like a ghost, pale, shaken. Olivia rushed forward to steady him. "Mr. Montgomery, please, calm down. Don't do this to yourself. If I don't have the right to be your father, then I'll marry her." His eyes cut to Olivia. "She'll be your new mother, and she'll teach you how to behave." Olivia's legs buckled. "What?" She shouldn't have stepped in, should have never touched him. Before she could process anything, Chase yanked her toward him, one arm locking tightly around her shoulders, the other gripping the back of her neck. His voice trembled with rage. "If you make her my mother, I'll end this for both of us. You and me." Covered in blood, fighting over a woman. "That's what you want?" Richard didn't flinch. "You're my son." "You gave that up the day you crawled into someone else's bed," Chase spat. The air was electric, heavy, choking. Olivia trembled in his arms, not daring to lift her head. This wasn't just a family feud. This was war. Richard took a single step forward, his voice hoarse. "Chase, is this really about your mother?" Chase's eyes turned wild. "She drank herself into a car crash because you cheated on her. Don't you dare act like you care." It was like time stopped. And Richard didn't deny it. He stood there, taking every word, pale, broken, silent. Olivia's heart twisted. Why isn't he defending himself? When she saw Richard sway, she jolted forward and tried to pull Chase away. "Chase, stop! He can't breathe!" Finally, Chase let go. Richard collapsed onto the floor, gasping for air. Chase sank down next to him, still furious. His shoulders heaving, Olivia dropped to her knees beside them, drained, barely able to keep herself upright. The room fell into a suffocating silence. No one spoke. Not even Chase. Finally, the butler stepped in and helped Richard to his feet. He shuffled upstairs slowly, unsteady, and alone. Olivia stared after him, heart in turmoil. So this was the truth behind Chase's bitterness. This was the pain he carried. And Richard, was he really the villain Chase believed him to be? If he wasn't, why hadn't he defended himself? The moment dragged. Olivia stood frozen. The pain was sharp, sudden. She'd never expected him to end up with her. With the girl who made her college years miserable. The girl who humiliated her at every turn. Behind her, Chase leaned in and whispered in her ear, voice low, "Ex-boyfriend?" As Olivia turned back toward Chase, her lips accidentally brushed the base of his throat. The contact was brief, fleeting, but it felt like a current of electricity shot through her. She froze. So did he. Chase immediately straightened, his neck flushed pink all the way to the tips of his ears. For once, he looked genuinely rattled. "This your boyfriend?" Nathan Cole asked, eyes resting on Olivia. His expression was complicated. Soft, hesitant, but undeniably familiar. His eyes were still warm, like the sunlight she remembered from college, the quiet comfort of someone who once meant everything to her. Chase shoved his hands into his pockets, standing off to the side like he didn't care. But even doing nothing, he drew every eye in the room. There was something about him. Reckless, magnetic, and Olivia made a split-second decision. She'd use that pull, just this once. So she didn't deny it. "Yeah," she said softly. "This is my boyfriend." Nathan looked at her, startled. Vanessa Sterling's smirk twisted, venom curling at the corners of her mouth. "Boyfriend?" she repeated, laughing. "Really, Olivia? I seem to remember you saying you wanted to marry rich. This one doesn't exactly scream money." Her gaze raked over Chase's black hoodie and beat-up sneakers. "Looks more like broke than bespoke." Olivia felt the cold all over again. The same feeling she used to get whenever Vanessa exposed her. Her family, her past, her everything. She made Olivia feel stripped, raw, and helpless. She instinctively looked at Nathan. But the softness in his eyes had turned to doubt. Disapproval. And just like that, the last little light inside her went out. Then, a hand landed on her shoulder. "Chase!" He stepped forward without hesitation, his voice casual but cutting. "Ugly and blind? That's rough, lady." Vanessa gasped. "Who the hell do you think you're talking to?" one of her friends snapped. Chase didn't even blink. "Whoever you are, you're not worth the air in here. Trash like you lowers the vibe of this whole place." Vanessa's face twisted in fury. She lunged forward, but Nathan held her back, murmuring something Olivia couldn't hear. Trash. That was the nickname Vanessa used for her all through college. "Take out the trash. Hey, Olivia. Get me a drink, and maybe I'll give you a bite of my steak." The memories came rushing back. Her hands trembled. The grip on her shoulder tightened. Chase didn't say a word, but his presence grounded her. Without warning, he snapped his fingers. A moment later, the restaurant manager came sprinting over, expression full of panic and respect. "Mr. Montgomery." "Sir, what brings you here tonight?" Vanessa and Nathan both froze. Chase leaned back, face hardening. "Remember these two faces. From now on, this place doesn't serve them." The manager nodded immediately. Vanessa's face crumpled. Nathan looked like he wanted to disappear. Chase turned, grabbed Olivia by the collar like she was a stray kitten, and dragged her toward the door. She couldn't even speak. All the way out, her heart thudded in her chest like it didn't know what to do. She looked at his side profile. The cold angles, the sharp jaw, and her throat tightened. She was thankful, deeply, honestly thankful. Outside, she finally wriggled free from his grip and whispered, "Thank you." Chase looked away, clearly embarrassed. He slipped a cigarette between his lips, ready to light it. Without thinking, Olivia reached up and snatched it. "What the hell?" he said, startled. She pulled a lollipop out of her bag. One of a handful she'd randomly bought at the supermarket last week, and shoved it between his lips. "Try that. Sugar's good for your mood." He gave her a look, deep sigh, but he didn't throw it away. Just stood there, cheeks puffed out like a sulking kid. Olivia couldn't help it. She laughed. Quietly, she followed him down the block. The night breeze was gentle, the stars unusually clear. They didn't talk about what had happened. Not about Vanessa, not about Nathan, not about the kiss that wasn't really a kiss. And that was a relief. Summer had arrived, and Chase was officially on break. Olivia adjusted his study schedule, sitting him down whenever he was home. Even if it was just in the evenings. Most of the time, he barely stayed awake, but he stayed, and that was enough. Then one night, Olivia was heading downstairs for a glass of water when she passed his room. She stopped. The moment she'd gone into his room, the way he'd held her, the weight of his body against hers. He was only 19. How could he be so aware? Beneath the cold stream of water in her shower, Olivia stared at her shoulder, replaying it all, the kiss, the words, the warmth. She let him get too close. She thought of her brother, of his scars. Faint but permanent. He invited her to the home theatre to watch a movie. And she agreed, only to choose a black and white war drama and spend the entire film analysing the themes for his next essay. He smiled as he passed one day and said, "Never seen the young master treat anyone with this much respect." But then he added something that knocked the wind out of her. "Just don't take it too seriously, Miss Hart. There was another assistant before you. Tried to seduce Mr. Montgomery, faked a pregnancy, flaunted it in front of the boy just to provoke him. Since then, every assistant has been the enemy to him." He shrugged. "You're the first one he's treated nicely, but you know how boys are." He'd said he had a good eye. She should have known. He'd had access to her personal file from day one. That afternoon, just after their lunch break, Olivia was prepping materials for their lesson when Chase suddenly spun his chair across the room and stopped right in front of her. His eyes were sharp, cold, but his tone was serious. "Olivia," he said, "what's going on with you lately? Did someone mess with you? Was it those two we ran into at the Lux Lounge the other day?" His voice was low, almost demanding, and his eyes... God, his eyes were something else. Even when narrowed in suspicion, they held something deep, something soft. She suddenly understood that saying, if you look someone in the eyes for more than 10 seconds, you'll fall in love with them. Flustered, Olivia quickly looked away. "No one's messing with me, and those two, they've got nothing to do with me." He stood, frustration rising in his voice. "Nothing to do with you? I already looked into it. That girl, Vanessa Sterling, is just the daughter of a supermarket chain owner, and she thinks she can do whatever she wants, post gossip about you on the school forum." He folded his arms. "Don't worry. I made sure every post about you got taken down, and as for her, she's got it coming." Olivia was stunned for a moment, then couldn't help but laugh softly. "Thanks," she said genuinely, "but I'll handle Vanessa myself." Vanessa came from money and carried herself like royalty on campus. Olivia had never understood what she did to provoke her. Just that, somehow, everything about her was wrong in Vanessa's eyes. In college, Olivia had lived on cafeteria soup and worked multiple jobs. Library, delivery, tutoring. No matter what she did, someone always managed to snap a humiliating photo and post it online. Once, she simply passed a male classmate in the hallway, and immediately rumors started about her gold digging. 4 years. The only person who'd stuck by her was her best friend, Bella Quinn. Dating? Out of the question. At one point, Olivia even tried to get the post taken down. But the more she deleted, the more popped up. It wasn't until later that she learned who was behind it all. Vanessa Sterling. But Olivia couldn't fight back. Not with that kind of power gap. Fine, he said after a pause. But if anything happens again, tell me. I'm here. No one touches you. She took Olivia's hand gently, her smile warm and kind. You must be Miss Hart. I've heard so much about how hard you've been working with Chase. Thank you for taking care of him. Olivia blinked, surprised. The woman didn't act like the haughty, domineering matriarchs she'd seen on television dramas. On the contrary, her touch was warm, her voice soothing, her eyes kind. She exuded quiet strength, the kind that only time and wisdom could bestow. Olivia quickly shook her head. You're too kind, ma'am. Chase is very intelligent, especially in math and English. He picks things up quickly. She meant every word. The woman's smile deepened. She patted Chase's shoulder and linked arms with Olivia as they strolled into the hallway. When he was little, Chase used to win international math competitions, she said proudly. Top of the class every year. He even lived abroad for a while. Then the woman's voice softened. He was just a boy when his mother passed. Right after elementary school graduation. That's when the tension with his father started. Miss Hart, she said earnestly. Thank you. It's not the academics I care about. It's him, his spirit, his heart. I can't bear to see him drifting through life like this. But today, seeing him like this, I haven't felt this relieved in years. She smiled again. Soft, bittersweet. For once, his father finally made a good decision in choosing you. She squeezed Olivia's hand. If this house had you in it, I know both father and son would come back home more often. If you were here, both my son and grandson would finally come home again. Was she implying that Olivia, was the reason this broken family might find its way back to each other? Grandma, this is my premium private tutor. Also known as the top scorer of the state college entrance exam. Graduated from A-list university, age 22. Technically old enough to be the daughter of my old man, but hey, guess that's what happens when... Thank you, ma'am. Truly. Mr. Montgomery has always been generous. I've already received far more than I deserve. The relationship between Olivia and Chase had finally started to soften. But now, with his grandmother's sudden visit, it all froze over again. He hesitated before finally revealing, young Master Montgomery is out, racing. Olivia's heart dropped. The butler wanted to report it to Richard, but she stopped him. The last thing that father and son needed was more fuel for their endless battles. I'll go get him, she said quickly. The butler arranged for a driver to take her out toward the edge of West Ridge, where an illegal race was underway. Dressed all in black, leaning casually against a deep blue sports car, a silver lighter, flicking open and closed in his hand. A stylish girl stood across from him, twirling her hair and smiling up at him like he was a god. And then the girl's high-pitched voice broke through the noise. Chase, if you're racing against Leo next round, can I ride with you? Olivia's heart sank. Chase Montgomery. His head snapped up immediately. His eyes locked on hers. Burning bright, sharper than the beams of any supercar around him, but he didn't move. Just lean there, casually, like this was all some kind of game. His gaze, intense and unrelenting, drew everyone's attention. All eyes turned to her. Another girl near him giggled. Chase! Who's the pretty one? She looking for you? Don't leave yet, Chase. After this race, I've got 50 grand riding on you. You can't back out now. I put down 10 grand too, another chimed in. Olivia scanned the crowd. Spoiled heirs, socialites, private school brats, all laughing and throwing around money like candy. She marched up to Chase, noting he had a lollipop tucked in his cheek, that trademark smirk curling the corner of his mouth. But before she could speak, a voice cut in. A blonde kid, decked out in white from head to toe, stepped between them. He glanced her up and down and turned to Chase with a mocking laugh. Tusk, so it's true. Your grandma said your tutor might be your next stepmom. He looked back at Olivia, grinning. She really is your tutor? Man, Chase, maybe you should head home and let your sweet little stepmom help you learn your ABCs. Laughter rippled through the group like a spark on gasoline. Chase's expression darkened instantly. The girl in the micro-mini dress curled herself around his arm and looked at Olivia with open disdain. So, this is the assistant, huh? I guess even Nanny's come out to play. Doesn't she know her place? Chase, the girl said sweetly. Tell her to go, she's ruining the vibe. Another voice joined in. Sharp, cruel. Or maybe she's just trying to climb the ladder. Who knows, right? Your current stepmom used to be your dad's music tutor. Their words hit her like ice water. Olivia stood frozen. And Chase? He said nothing, just stared at her, expression unreadable. His silence cutting deeper than any insult. Her chest tightened, but Olivia forced herself to lift her chin high. You're right, she said, voice steady. Everything you just said is true. She looked around at the crowd, each pair of judgmental eyes a spark fanning the fire in her chest. I was the top scorer on my state's college entrance exam at 18, just 5 points shy of a perfect score. I graduated from A-list university. I scored an 8.0 on the IELTS. I was offered a graduate position at Harvard and turned it down. The crowd stilled. I now work at the executive office of Montgomery Corporation. I've privately tutored 2 students. One got into Princeton, the other into Yale. So yes, I am qualified to tutor Chase Montgomery. Her gaze sharpened. And as for all this talk about social climbing, I don't need to climb anywhere. If I wanted power, I'd already have it. Think I can't do that with this brain? The girl with sea green hair narrowed her eyes, cold as glass. Chase, meanwhile, had a strange smile playing at his lips. Subtle, almost unnoticeable, but Olivia caught it. Then it vanished. He tossed his lollipop to the ground and strode to his car. Leo, he called to the guy in the red coupe. You racing or running your mouth? Leo grinned and popped the door open. Racing, and I'm gonna crush you. He jumped in, giddy. Green-haired girl skipped toward Chase's passenger seat, tugging at the door handle. But Chase snapped, Move! She froze and stepped back. Olivia stood at a distance, momentarily stunned. The surrounding crowd nudged her away as the 2 cars lined up, ready to launch. Then Chase looked over his shoulder and winked. It hit her like a lightning bolt. Before she knew what she was doing, she dashed forward and climbed into the passenger seat beside him. The crowd gasped. Wait! Someone's actually in Chase Montgomery's passenger seat. She's crazy. She won't last 5 minutes. He'll throw her out. Get out, he said flatly. But Olivia snapped her seatbelt on and stared him down. Not unless you stop the car. You asked for it. Guess you believe in fate. And then, vroom, they were off. Freedom. In that moment, everything. Money, pain, fear of the future, faded away. In the rearview mirror, she could see the red car keeping up. Her fingers dug into the edge of her seat. "Brace yourself," Chase called out. "Final turn." She took a breath and tightened her core, leaning with the car. Then, "Olivia," he said. Her name in that voice made her chest seize. "I like you." Her head whipped around. "What?" His eyes glittered with mischief. "And something far more sincere. I said I like you. Got that?" She stared at him in shock. The words echoed in her skull. She saw the way his mouth curled, the way the little mole near his eye caught the light like a star. And then, everything tilted. "Chase!" Before she could finish, the car skidded. Chase hit the brakes. The red coupe roared past. The inertia sent her forward, hard. But Chase's arm flew up, catching her head with his palm, cradling it so she wouldn't slam into the dash. His hand was hot, his breathing rapid. "You okay?" His voice was sharp, full of panic now. She clutched her stomach, swallowing back the urge to throw up. I feel nauseous." His face twisted with concern. "Where? What hurts?" Then, knock, knock, knock. Someone banged on the window. Leo. He was furious. "What the hell, Chase? Are you kidding me? You just threw the race?" "I was supposed to lose. You cost me 100 grand. Chase didn't even look at him. "You lost," he said coldly. "Your choice," Leo swore, then stomped off, tires squealing as his red car peeled into the night. Olivia sat in stunned silence, heart thudding. She looked at Chase again. His eyes were still burning, and for once, she didn't want to run. By the time Olivia realized, Chase had already unbuckled her seatbelt. She flung the car door open and staggered out, doubling over to vomit on the side of the road. Her stomach churned violently, nothing but bitterness rising up her throat. A hand gently patted her back. Then came a bottle of water, pressed into her palm. "I'm sorry," Olivia whispered, barely able to meet his eyes. "You lost. Because of me." She stared at the line, eyes stinging. Chase pulled off his helmet and tossed it back into the car without a glance. Then, step by step, he walked toward her. "I didn't stop for you. I stopped because winning once is enough. Now Leo won't bother me for a while." His voice was low, calm, but those stormy eyes of his told a different story. He leaned in, eyes like the night sky, full of stars. "Olivia," he said softly, "you did hear what I said back there, right?" He was talking about the moment, the confession that had poured out like a bullet in the wind. "I like you." The words had crashed straight into her heart. It wasn't the speed of the car that made it race. It was him. Chase leaned closer. His palms cupped her face, warm and steady. His thumbs brushed her cheeks. And then he kissed her. It wasn't soft. It wasn't hesitant. It was bold, direct, like him. Olivia froze, body stiff, her brain completely blank. And then, just when she realized his lips were starting to move deeper, she snapped back to life, her hand shoved at his chest, hard. Instinctively, she raised her hand to slap him, but Chase just smirked and didn't flinch. "Go ahead," he said. "If it makes you feel better, I'll take it." Her mouth dropped open. "My first kiss, gone, and he doesn't even look guilty." She tried to gather herself, voice shaky but firm. "Chase, let me make something clear. I'm not into boys who act like spoiled brats." His smile faded. He dropped his hands to her shoulders, voice lower now. "Serious. I'm not a kid. I've grown up more than you think." He paused, searching her face. "I'm not trying to mess up your job. I just want you to take my feelings seriously." That stopped her. She hadn't expected that. Not from him. But she held her ground. "Chase," she said, her tone firm, "you're from a rich family. I don't have time to play whatever this is with you. You want a game? Go find someone else. You've got no shortage of girls lining up. I'm not my father. He said it fast, like he needed to prove something. But she cut him off, looking up at the sky. I have too many things I still need to do. Love isn't on the list. He stared at her. So it's not me? It's the timing? If I wanted your help, I'd ask for it, she said, exasperated. The only thing you can do for me now is pass your college entrance exams. That's all. She stepped back. Get in the car. You still have a physics session left tonight. Chase turned around and walked silently back to the car. Olivia figured that was it. He was pissed, and he'd leave her stranded to hike down the mountain alone. Then, honk. She looked up. He was in the driver's seat. The passenger door was open. She climbed in. He didn't look at her, just focused on the road, silent and unreadable. She'd just rejected him. But instead of relief, she felt strangely heavy. Her eyes drifted sideways, landing on his lips. Still a little red, still curved slightly from that grin. She pressed her fingers to her own mouth. There was still a trace of sweetness there. A faint, soft taste, like green apple. Suddenly, she remembered, right before the race, he'd tossed away a green apple lollipop. He hadn't said anything. She never told anyone she didn't like candy. And yet, now she found herself memorizing the taste, the scent of green apple. To her, in that moment, that was the taste of first love. The Montgomery estate, once lively with his usual mischief, had turned eerily still. So much so that even the old butler had pulled Olivia aside and whispered with concern, "Miss Hart, did the young master get into some kind of serious trouble at the race? He's been unusually quiet these days. It's unsettling." Olivia could only offer a tight-lipped smile. What could she say? That she'd turned him down, and now Chase Montgomery, the billionaire heir, is lovesick? So she told herself it had just been the adrenaline, a heat-of-the-moment confession blurted during the rush of the race. It didn't mean anything. That night, after dinner, Olivia took her usual walk around the back trails of the estate. The Montgomery property was nestled halfway up the mountain, backed by thick, quiet woods. The air was clean and sharp, full of pine and evening dew. Locals often came up in the mornings and evenings to jog. The atmosphere always reminded her of home. Tonight, however, she wasn't alone. She bumped into Annie, the blue-haired girl from the race. Apparently, she lived nearby too. They talked longer than Olivia expected, and after Annie left, Olivia stayed where she was, sitting on a bench beneath the trees. Her mind wandered. And, as if pulled by gravity, she found herself replaying that moment on the mountaintop, the kiss, and then his words. "I'm not like my father." There had been real pain behind his eyes. Now, thinking back, maybe he meant it. Despite how much she respected Mr. Montgomery, Olivia had heard the rumors about the famous actress. Then the high-profile female CEO. Chase hated that lifestyle. He resented the irresponsibility, the revolving door of partners. And that only made it clearer how different he wanted to be. In that sense, Chase really was more mature than she gave him credit for. Maybe she had judged him too quickly. But even if his feelings were real, even if he was sincere, she couldn't accept them. They came from two worlds. Whatever she felt toward him was likely just a fleeting warmth, and whatever he felt toward her, maybe it was nothing more than rebellion dressed up as affection. The next morning, she tried to play it cool. While reviewing a lesson, she casually brought up Annie. "Annie told me she likes you," she said lightly. "Want me to invite her over to study sometime?" Chase immediately slammed his pen down. He leaned back, cold eyes flashing with amusement. What's this, Miss Hart? Not making enough as an assistant, so now you're matchmaking on the side. God, that mouth of his. She didn't argue, didn't snap back. Just silently handed him an extra stack of worksheets. While he sulked and scribbled away, she sat beside him with a book, quietly reading. Apparently, he couldn't handle being ignored for long. Go grab my guitar, he suddenly said. I want to play something. Olivia ground her teeth but didn't argue. She climbed all the way to the 4th floor attic, muttering under her breath. The space was huge but cluttered. Old basketballs, forgotten toys, even a dusty upright piano. She spotted a guitar case in the far corner, with his name carved into it. When she opened it, she had to blink twice. A gold-plated guitar. Literal gold. She'd read somewhere that this model cost over $500,000, and here it was. Abandoned in a dusty attic, like a broken toy. Carefully, she wiped down the case and prepared to carry it downstairs. But as she moved, she accidentally knocked over a small dressing table. A slim notebook tumbled out of the drawer and landed at her feet. Curious, Olivia bent down. The cover was delicate, with dates scribbled in looping handwriting. Her first thought, Chase's old diary? She hesitated, biting her lip. It fell on its own. I didn't go looking for it, just a glance. But the second she skimmed a few lines, her knees gave out, and she dropped to the floor. It wasn't Chase's journal. It was his mother's. And the contents? Terrifying. Each page read like a sealed secret that should have never seen light. Like opening Pandora's box. If anyone else ever got hold of this, the Montgomery family would implode. Olivia quickly slammed the journal shut and reached to put it back. When, Olivia, a voice behind her, her heart stopped. She spun around. Chase stood in the doorway. When had he gotten there? His voice was calm, but sharp. What are you hiding? Her hands trembled. The journal slipped and fell to the floor with a dull thud. Before she could pick it up, he stepped forward and snatched it. No! Wait! She rushed forward, trying to grab it back, her arms wrapped tightly around his torso. Give it back! It's not yours! I have to see what you're trying so hard to hide. He was taller than her by a good head. Olivia could barely reach his arm, let alone stop him. Her heart sank as she saw the teasing curve on his lips slowly fade into a cold, unreadable line. Chase, stop, she pleaded, grabbing at his wrist, voice trembling. Please. Don't read it. It's not real. Whatever's in there, it's not the truth. Then, his voice, low and shattered. The woman I loved most betrayed me. I didn't want to be like them, he muttered almost to himself. But she's gone, and the world, it's just empty now. There's nothing left for me. He flipped to another page, reading aloud in a monotone. Even if I become the wife of the Montgomery family, it's not what I wanted. Just a few sentences. Cold, brutal. Ripped the ground out from under her. Was this really written by Chase's mother? No, she said, gripping his arm. That can't be right. That can't be what she meant. For years, Chase had blamed his father for his mother's death. Now this twisted truth threw everything upside down. He clutched his head, red-eyed, and began pounding his fists against his temples. Chase, stop! Olivia cried, panicked. She reached for him, but he shoved her away and bolted. He ran. Out the room, down the stairs, straight to the garage. Olivia raced after him, blocking the driver's side. Chase, please! Tell me where you're going. She thought maybe he'd storm off to confront his father, but he only muttered a place, Harmony Wellness Center. The moment they arrived, Chase disappeared inside. Olivia waited in the lobby, nerves shredded. When he emerged from the director's office nearly an hour later, he looked like a shell, like someone had scooped the soul right out of him. He stood for a long moment, staring blankly at the distant trees. Then, without warning, he sank into a crouch and began hitting his head again. "Chase!" She knelt beside him, trying to stop him. Sweat beaded on his pale forehead. "I'll call someone," she whispered, panicked. "No," he choked, pulling her into his arms. His whole body shook, his head buried in her shoulder, his breath shallow. She wrapped her arms around him, gently rubbing his back as he trembled. Eventually, his breathing slowed, though her shirt was soaked with tears. His voice broke. "Olivia, if something ever happens to you, don't keep it to yourself. Tell me, please. I'm here." She nodded, trying to stay strong. For him. This boy was shouldering pain no one his age should have to carry. But then he whispered something that shattered her. "Olivia, I remember now." She froze. "My mom. She was driving. We were supposed to find a place to die together, but only she did. I survived. I lived here. I blocked it all out." Olivia's stomach turned. Her vision blurred. What mother would take their own child on a suicide drive? This wasn't a cruel joke. Chase meant it. And now, she was terrified he might follow in her footsteps. She squeezed his hand and refused to let go. He sat there, limp, silent, unblinking. She didn't know what to do but stay close. She helped him into the car, assuming he'd want to go home. But instead, he instructed the driver, "Take us to Montgomery HQ." On the way, Olivia's phone rang. It was Mr. Montgomery himself. "Why did Chase visit Dr. Yang?" he demanded. Olivia hesitated. "He's on his way to see you now." She didn't dare say more. She quickly messaged the executive assistant with a single update. "Mrs. Montgomery's journal is in Chase's possession." The reply came instantly. "The CEO is aware. Stay with him." When the car pulled up to Montgomery Corp's towering headquarters, the back door swung open before the chauffeur could reach for it. "Mr." Montgomery stood waiting, visibly tense. "Chase," he said gently. Chase looked at his father, opened his mouth, but no sound came out. "Come on," his father said, and led him toward the private executive elevator. Olivia stayed behind, hands shaking. The assistant turned to her. "What happened?" She just shook her head, pretending she knew nothing. The assistant watched her closely, then patted her shoulder. "You did good, Olivia. This is big. Real big." Her stomach turned. If Mr. Montgomery ever found out that she had accidentally unearthed the journal, she was done for. Upstairs, the entire executive floor had been cleared. Olivia and the assistant stood like statues outside the office doors, silent and still. Time dragged. Then, at last, the doors opened. Chase and his father stepped out, eyes red, faces pale, but somehow closer. The air between them had changed. Olivia exhaled for the first time in what felt like hours. Mr. Montgomery looked at her with something that might have been warmth. "Olivia," he said softly, "take Chase home. I'll be joining you two for dinner tonight." She blinked. "Yes, sir." As they turned to leave, Chase glanced at her, just for a second, and smiled. He smiled. It was real. Dinner that night was strange, tense, but polite, and afterward, Mr. Montgomery handed Olivia a check. 500 million dong. Roughly $20,000. He didn't say a word, but she understood. She had to find a specialist. Now, with her friend's help, She connected with a renowned orthopedic surgeon. After reviewing her brother's x-rays, the doctor finally said what she'd waited years to hear. There's still a chance we can fix it. She was so happy she jumped up and cried right there in the lobby. Later that night, Olivia called her brother. I found someone. You can come to the city. There's still hope. But he only said, I'm doing fine. I don't want to leave the village. You take care of yourself. Then he hung up. She broke down on the stairwell, sobbing uncontrollably. It had always been her fault. She was the reason their father broke his leg. She was the reason he stopped chasing his own dreams. Her brother was nearly 30 now, but still single. Because he was disabled. Their stepmother never wanted to spend a dime on his dowry. In fact, she'd rather see him stay home and scrub floors for the rest of his life. But Olivia couldn't bear that thought. She wanted to get him out of that toxic, run-down house, filled with resentment and rot. Olivia promised herself she would find time to go home and bring him to the city, no matter what. Liv, wipe your tears. That familiar voice snapped her back to the present. She looked up and saw Ethan Lee standing in front of her, holding out a tissue. He stood under the sunlight, that same warm smile on his face. He looked even more handsome than he had in college. But oddly, now, she felt nothing. Not even the flutter she used to feel when he smiled like that. The first time she met Ethan, she'd been in shambles too. Back then, she'd been humiliated by Trisha's clique in the dorms. But she hadn't cried. Not until she got a call from her brother, saying he'd limped his way to a rural bank to send her $300,000 for food and school expenses. Apart from the scholarship she'd earned, most of her tuition was covered by the Montgomery Foundation. Her father never gave her a cent. She never expected him to. That day, after her brother's call, she had hidden in the library and wept. It was Ethan who'd seen her. He had silently handed her a tissue. That moment had stayed etched in her heart for 5 years. He was student council president back then. Because of him, she pushed herself to join, hoping to learn, to grow. She had learned a lot, and she had always been grateful. Ethan, she said softly, standing up but not taking the tissue. What are you doing here? Liv, he said with a bittersweet chuckle. You've been avoiding me, haven't you? If we hadn't run into each other at Serenity Lounge the other day, I wouldn't even know you worked for Montgomery Group now. His tone was kind, his gaze soft, but Olivia felt a strange distance between them. She didn't respond immediately, her mind catching on something. How did he know she worked at Montgomery Group? She didn't remember mentioning it at Serenity Lounge. Ethan had a girlfriend now, and yet here he was, being just a little too vague, a little too warm. Maybe he sensed her hesitation, because he quickly explained that an old college classmate had mentioned it in passing. Olivia didn't quite buy it, but she let it go. So what brings you here? She asked instead. He pulled a business card from his wallet and handed it to her. I'm here to meet your boss. We're discussing a potential partnership. Vice President of Marketing, Tran Industries. Congratulations, Ethan. Looks like your career's going great. There was a flicker of pride in his eyes, but then he stepped closer. Liv, you're doing great too. I mean, working in the executive office at Montgomery Group. That's amazing. We used to have such a good connection back in school. Maybe you could say a few good words for Tran Industries to your boss? I get the sense there's some hesitation about us. His tone was smooth, too smooth, and his eyes were no longer gentle. They were calculated. So this was it, she thought. He wanted a favor. She took 2 steps back, standing on the stair above him, giving herself the higher ground literally and metaphorically. Ethan, she said, her voice clear, you overestimate me. I'm just an assistant. I don't have that kind of pull. He wasn't deterred. But you're close with the Montgomery heir, aren't you? That was it. Her smile widened, but it turned colder. Did you forget how your girlfriend mocked him the last time we met? She said calmly. I didn't bring that up to my boss because I was being considerate of you. But the Montgomery-Tran collaboration? I really can't help you there. She turned on her heel and walked away. He stood there, staring after her. But she no longer feared him. Ethan Lee had changed, and so had she. There was a time she thought he understood her back when he was known as the broke golden boy of their university. Humble, cheerful, hard-working. She thought they were kindred spirits, but the night she ran into him at Serenity Lounge, everything became clear. They were not the same. They never had been. Later that night, while helping Chase study, Olivia casually asked, "Was the Montgomery contract dropped because of you?" It was after dinner, and Chase was sprawled across the couch spinning a pen between his fingers. He glanced up, smiling slyly. "I didn't say anything to my dad," he said coolly. "I just brought up what happened at Serenity with Trisha's little brother." Olivia blinked. So it really had been him. She couldn't help but smirk. Well, maybe she wasn't the only one who saw through Ethan and Trisha after all. Olivia froze. Charles Leith, executive assistant to Mr. Montgomery, her direct supervisor, and the right-hand man of the CEO, he was the one Chase had spoken to. That meant Chase had told his father everything. With Mr. Montgomery's fierce loyalty to his family, it wasn't surprising the deal with Tran Industries had fallen through. Still, Olivia was secretly relieved. She was glad to see Trisha and her circle fall from grace. It was a reminder that arrogant people eventually eat their own karma. But that relief didn't last long. Just 2 days later, the morning started off like any other. Olivia stepped out of her apartment and froze. A man was crouched at her door. "What the hell are you doing here?" she asked sharply. The middle-aged man stood and raised his hand as if to strike her instinct, no doubt. "You ungrateful brat. Now I see why you didn't come home. Living large, huh? In a fancy place like this, and you can't be bothered to show your father some respect." Olivia instinctively backed up, her heart pounding. "I send you 1,000 every month," she said through gritted teeth. "You think that's not enough?" She never wanted to send him a dime, but every time he called, he'd use her brother as leverage, threaten him, guilt her. "You think you've got wings now? You think you're grown?" He raised his hand again, and before she could react, another man stepped out from the shadows. A heavy-set guy with a shaved head, probably in his 30s, face full of flesh and eyes gleaming with something dark. He stepped forward, caught her father's arm, and pulled him back, but his gaze never left Olivia. It was sticky, greasy, like a snake eyeing prey. "Uncle, don't bruise her," the man said with a smirk. "Go get us some breakfast. Let me talk to Olivia." He whispered something in her father's ear, then pulled 2 stacks of cash from his pocket and handed it over. Her father's face lit up like Christmas. He slapped the man on the shoulder. "Talk nice to her, would you? That's your future wife, after all." "Your dad took my money," he said, grinning. "That means you're mine. Let's have a little fun." She fought back, scratching and clawing at his face, but he was too strong. He yanked at her waistband, breath hot and foul. "You should be honored. Someone like me wants you," he snarled. Her ears rang, her mouth filled with blood. She was dizzy and unable to move, pinned beneath him. Her only thought, "If he does this to me, I'll kill him, and I'll kill my father too." Just as her vision went dark, she heard it. Someone had burst in. The man on top of her was kicked off with a force that sent him crashing into the wall. Olivia curled into a ball, barely conscious. Her blouse was torn, her body trembling. It was Chase. His eyes were bloodshot, his fists savage. "Stop!" Olivia croaked, dragging herself toward him. "You'll kill him." Chase's entire body was trembling with rage. "He deserves to die." "No, it's not worth it." She grabbed his arm and held tight. "He's not worth it, Chase." Police sirens wailed in the distance. And the bitter twist? It was her own father who had called them. The same father who'd stood outside the apartment while his daughter was he had a key. He'd found her. And the man who helped save her almost got himself arrested. After they were released from the station, Olivia was summoned. Charles Lee arrived in a long black car. When the door opened, Mr. Montgomery stepped out. His expression was ice cold. Chase was trembling beside her, his hands still bloodstained. "Miss Hughes," Mr. Montgomery said coolly, "I'll have Charles handle your settlement. My son nearly left with a permanent criminal record because of you. I trust you understand what I mean." Her nails dug into her palms. She bowed deeply. "I'm sorry, sir. It was my fault. I won't involve your son again." "Good." Charles stepped forward, handing her a check for $5 million. "You've done a lot for the Montgomery family," he said gently. "This is compensation. You know what to do now." Olivia's hands trembled. $5 million. Her ticket out. Her escape route. Her chance to save her brother. She bowed her head. "Thank you, Mr. Tran. I'll consider this a loan. I'll repay it one day." After they left, Olivia collapsed onto the floor of her apartment. Her face throbbed, but the pain was nothing compared to what she felt inside. Because when Chase burst through that door, when she saw his eyes, she realized something. She had fallen for him. She loved him. And now, it was over. She was jobless, but she was suddenly wealthy. She rented a 2-bedroom apartment near Central Medical in downtown LA. Within 3 hours, Chase called her 99 times. She blocked the number. He used a different one. She turned off the phone completely. Never used it again. Her stepmother, half-sister, and stepbrother left voicemail after voicemail calling her ungrateful, selfish, a disgrace. Her younger brother sent her a text. "Don't come home. If you do, Dad will sell you again." The bald man survived, but he'd been severely warned. Still, before he disappeared, he emptied everything from her family's house. She knew she couldn't delay it any longer. She had to get her brother out of there. "If you don't come home, I'll break his other leg." He meant it. That monster always meant it. So Olivia returned to the village she hadn't dared to set foot in for over 4 years. The place hadn't changed. The same crumbling shacks, the same sun-bleached brick walls, the same feeling that time itself had forgotten this patch of earth. As soon as she stepped through the entrance to the village, the headman spotted her. "Well, well, Olivia's finally decided to show her face," he said, arms crossed with clear disapproval. "You really are ungrateful. Your family scraped together every penny to send you to college, and this is how you repay them. Heard your daddy went to find you and ended up in jail. Disgraceful." The elders nearby quickly joined in, pointing fingers and shaking heads. Olivia didn't bother trying to explain. She pushed through the crowd and made her way toward the small, overgrown plot at the edge of the village. She knew where he'd be. Maybe it was the unbreakable bond between them. And in that moment, she hated how close she had come to falling for him, because the more she depended on him, the more she feared she would lose the sharp edges that had protected her all her life. So staying away from Tyler wasn't just good for him, it was good for her too. Olivia turned to gaze at the orange sky melting over the horizon, but suddenly, she felt his arms wrap gently around her waist from behind. His breath brushed warm against her ear. You know, Tyler murmured, voice low. Everything you said just now, it only made me fall for you more. Her entire body tensed. Her back pressed into his chest, her heart thudding so hard it echoed in her ears. Liv, I'm not selfless. If it weren't for you, after learning the truth about my mom, I think I would have fallen apart completely. Maybe I would have gone with her, wherever she went. His voice trembled slightly, deep and hollow, like it had scraped through too much pain. But I didn't, because I had you. Her breath caught in her throat. He leaned down, brushing a soft kiss across her forehead. The scent of his white tea cologne drifted between them, wrapping her senses in quiet warmth. She looked up at him, eyes steady. Tyler, when you get into college then, we'll talk about this. About us. His eyes lit up. His hands gripped her shoulders as if holding on to the promise itself. You said it, he beamed. You'd better not disappear on me again. Olivia nodded slightly, and Tyler left that night with the brightest smile she'd ever seen on him. After he was gone, she noticed a small card sitting on her desk in his handwriting. If I'm lucky enough to meet the one, I'll do everything in my power to make her happy. That one is you, Ty. It was the third time he had confessed to her. And this time, she believed him. But even Sosh left him. Her brother's recovery had gone well. She took him to Niles Harbor, a quiet seaside town where he could finish healing and she could finally rest. They opened a small noodle shop together. His cooking was incredible, so she named the place after him. 6 months passed in peaceful routine. Her brother settled into a steady rhythm, and one day he encouraged her to go, "You have dreams too. Don't waste them just to stay here with me." With his blessing, Olivia applied for a master's program at Harvard. It had always been her dream to study abroad. Her life in Boston was busy but fulfilling. After graduation, instead of heading home, she took time off to learn to drive and prepare for a solo road trip across the US. While passing through Denver, she stumbled upon an Auto Expo luxury sports cars everywhere. It instantly reminded her of that wild night Tyler had taken her racing. Almost involuntarily, she stepped into the convention hall. She couldn't afford most of the cars, not after taxes and import fees, but that didn't matter. She just wanted to take one for a test drive. A tall blonde guy, probably a model for the event, followed her around, chatting and grinning. "Can I take you out for dinner?" he asked, clearly interested. She smiled and tilted her head. "Sorry, I have a boyfriend." The model looked skeptical, until a firm hand landed on her shoulder. "I'm her boyfriend," a familiar voice said. Her heart skipped a beat. She turned slowly, disbelieving. Tyler stood behind her, casually dressed in black, leaner and taller, face sharper, more maturer, but those eyes, that voice, it was him. He was real. The blonde model shrugged, muttered, "Lucky guy," and walked off. She tried to move, but Tyler tightened his hold around her shoulders. "I finally found you," he whispered. "You got into college?" she asked, a little breathless. He smiled. "Top tier. I'm your underclassman now." Her cheeks flushed. He looked even better than before, and from the way some nearby girls glanced at him, she wasn't the only one who noticed. Tyler pulled her into a hug. "This time, you're not getting away from me." "Wait, you met my brother?" she asked, shocked. Tyler grinned. "Of course. He likes me, by the way." Resting her head on his chest, she listened to the way his heart raced as fast as hers. Maybe it was time to go home, she thought. The sky above was crystal blue, but she still missed the clouds back home. On the plane, Tyler sat beside her, playing with her fingers, casual and quiet. Then suddenly, "Liv, did you know? I'm not actually my dad's biological son. She froze. What? Wait, are you saying your dad was your mum's lover or something? But during the past few days, she had seen him get texts from his father constantly. Video calls, real affection. Could someone really care that much for a child that wasn't even theirs? Tyler smiled, brushing her nose with a finger. No, he said softly. My dad, he's actually my uncle. My biological father's older brother. Olivia froze. You want to hear the love story between my real parents and my dad? Tyler asked casually. She clamped her hands over her ears immediately. Thanks, but no thanks. I really don't want to hear it. Old money, tangled romances, family feuds was the kind of drama only the rich could afford. She wanted no part of it. But Tyler, relentless as ever, held her hand and told the whole story anyway. By the end, Olivia was sobbing uncontrollably. Once it was all out, all she could say was, "Your dad, he's an incredible man. One of the rare good ones." Tyler chuckled, dragging his suitcase with one hand and wrapping the other around her waist. Then, in true Tyler fashion, he leaned in and kissed her cheek firmly. "Stop praising him! Your boyfriend's even better." And it was in that moment, with his fierce love shining like sunlight, that Olivia allowed herself to believe again, just one more time, in something as fragile and dangerous as love. Rumors had spread Tyler had reconnected with Olivia while in Denver. Tristan Hayes, president of Hayes Group and Tyler's adoptive father, sat in silence for a long time when he heard the news. It had been 3 years. He'd thought the boy had forgotten her, but no, he should have known better. Tyler was his son after all, just like him. Both men wore the face of a heartbreaker, but deep down, they were hopelessly loyal. Tristan reached for the old photograph tucked in the corner of his desk. Beneath a blooming cherry blossom tree stood 3 figures: a stunning young woman with soft features, Olivia, a composed young man in a pressed shirt himself, and an unruly, grinning boy with wild energy, his younger brother Derek. The 5th of March, 1999. Since Tyler had uncovered the truth, this dusty photo had come out of the vault again. 2 decades had passed. Tristan was 50 now. He still dyed his hair every month, but streaks of silver were starting to win the war. Olivia and Derek were frozen in time, forever young, forever lost. Derek had been 3 years younger. From birth, it was Tristan who had been groomed to lead the Hayes family empire. He grew up under the scrutiny of their grandfather, with his life scheduled to the minute fencing lessons, piano practice, etiquette drills, business dinners, a machine in a boy's skin. But Derek? Derek got to be a kid. He chased cats and climbed trees, got into fights and scraped knees. He once tied firecrackers to the tails of neighborhood pets and laughed when they ran. The truth was, Tyler reminded him a lot of Derek. Wild, defiant, brilliant. Yet there were only 2 people Derek had ever been afraid of: Tristan and Olivia. It wasn't that Tristan hit him or yelled. Just one look from Tristan's stern face and Derek would freeze in place. But that never stopped him from trailing after his older brother, gaming loudly while Tristan tried to read, laughing too hard, living too freely. And Olivia moved next door when they were in elementary school. She was graceful, artistic, always sketching or dancing barefoot in the yard. Sweet as sugar, tough as nails. She and Derek had been classmates, but she was the only girl he allowed to tag along. No matter how many times he rolled his eyes or teased her, Derek never let her fall behind. He once said, "If Olivia cries, I have no idea what to do. I hate it." When Tristan heard Tyler speak with such poetic certainty, he knew his younger brother had already fallen hard for Olivia. They were just like something out of a storybook. Childhood friends, natural soulmates, playful, honest, effortlessly in sync. Tristan Hayes had always been emotionally reserved. He didn't make friends easily and wasn't exactly a master of emotional expression. So, in the end, there were really only two people in the world he felt truly close to: his younger brother, Derek, and Olivia. Derek and Tristan were opposites in every way. Derek was full of life, all charm and laughter. He inherited their parents' best traits: athleticism, charisma, looks, and none of Tristan's obsession with order. He wasn't interested in grades, but he could beat anyone at fencing, horseback riding, or swimming. From a young age, Derek was the golden boy, the kind everyone noticed. Everyone liked him. And plenty loved him. Tristan had seen it himself, Derek begging Olivia to forgive him after one of their fights, promising she was the only girl he'd ever care about. There was one time Derek brought back a souvenir from Europe just for her. They argued constantly, but the next minute, they'd make up again just like any young couple. Tristan admired them. He tried dating too, but he always ended up disappointed. Most of the women he met wanted to date Tristan Hayes, heir to the Hayes group, not him. It all felt so hollow. Honestly, he preferred work. Making money was more stimulating, more honest. He started working at the company in high school. As his responsibilities grew, his time shrank, and he only ever heard about Derek and Olivia through Derek's occasional storytelling. But he wasn't worried. The two of them were solid. Finding someone who truly loved you, especially in their family, was rare. Eventually, Derek and Olivia went overseas for college. Tristan had regretted that decision many times since. Because once abroad, Derek found himself addicted to adrenaline. Skydiving, cliff diving, high-speed racing, anything that gave him a thrill, he chased it like oxygen. The whole family would lecture him every time he snuck home with a new scar or cast. He'd promised to stop. He never did. Once, Tristan had even gone to Olivia, asking her to talk some sense into him. "I don't want to wake up one day and find out my brother's been in a fatal accident," he told her. But Olivia just looked up at him with that calm, clear voice and said, "Tristan, Derek has everything: money, looks, a family who loves him. What he lacks is a sense of purpose. Adrenaline is the only thing that reminds him he's alive. At least he's not doing drugs or gambling. We've even seen a therapist. It helps. A little. But he's not ready to stop." Tristan couldn't argue. She was right. She even compared Derek's obsession with thrill to his own obsession with building wealth. "What if someone took away your company tomorrow?" she asked softly. "What would you be?" From the hallway, he watched her sit at the easel, sunlight streaming across her dark hair like a golden halo. Her brush danced over the canvas, creating the outline of a boy soaring with a glider toward the sun. It was Derek, and he looked like a fallen angel on his way to heaven. In that moment, Tristan understood why his brother had loved her for so many years. He felt jealous. Jealous that his little brother had found someone who truly saw him, who understood him in ways even he couldn't. That night, Derek burst into his office, wrapped him in a rough hug, and grinned. "Olivia's painting something special for you," he said. "Once it's done, she and I are gifting it to you for your birthday." "I'll wait for it," Tristan had said. But that painting never came. Because a few weeks later, at just 24 years old, Derek Hayes died on Mount Madison. When they found his body, cold and still, he looked like he was sleeping. Olivia had been waiting at the base of the mountain. When Derek didn't return, she collapsed. They rushed her to the hospital, where the doctors delivered stunning news she was pregnant. "If she doesn't wake up soon," one doctor said, "the baby might not survive either." Tristan mobilized everything: helicopters, search teams, specialists. But in the end, all he could do was bring his brother home in a box. He received a letter soon after, delivered by Derek's lawyer. A will. "Tristan, if one day I'm gone for good, please transfer everything I own to Olivia. Take care of her for me. Being your brother, Being mom and dad's sonnet was the greatest joy of my life. If I could do it again, I'd choose to be your little brother all over again. Reading Derek's handwriting, Tristan broke down for the first time in years. His brilliant, reckless sunbeam of a brother gone forever. Olivia eventually woke up, but when she opened her eyes, she looked at Tristan with pure joy and whispered, "Babe, you're going to be a dad." She thought he was Derek. The doctors explained her mind was protecting her from the truth. The trauma had caused selective memory loss, possibly permanent. She didn't know Derek was gone. Neither her parents nor his could bear to break her heart. They stayed by her side, holding hands and whispering her name, hoping she'd come back to reality. Tristan made a choice. If she couldn't let go of Derek, then he would step in. He'd be the father. He'd be her anchor. He'd marry her if he had to, because Olivia needed stability, and the child growing inside her needed a home. His mother gripped his hand, sobbing uncontrollably. She didn't want his life to be tied down by a marriage born of tragedy, but Tristan shook his head gently. "I have to marry someone someday. Let it be Olivia. I'll take care of her, Mom. I promise." So they quietly registered their marriage overseas. That was the only marriage of Tristan Hayes' life. And he never once regretted it. He was profoundly grateful to Olivia, not just because she gave birth to Tyler, but because she saved all of them. Tyler wasn't just Derek's son, he was their son. The last light in the lives of two grieving families. After Tyler was born, something miraculous happened. One day, out of nowhere, Olivia regained her full awareness. But the moment she realized Tristan wasn't Derek, her entire world collapsed. He found her sitting in the dark, slashing her wrists. There were already long, pale scars on her arms. She couldn't sleep, and she began consuming dangerous amounts of sleeping pills. With no other choice, Tristan brought her to Dr. Daniel Nam, a top psychiatrist. The doctor's warning was clear. If she wasn't treated soon, she wouldn't just hurt herself, she might end up hurting Tyler too. During her treatment, she slowly stabilized. On some of his visits, she'd throw herself into his arms, sobbing, "Tristan, let me go find Derek. Please, I can't do this anymore. It's all my fault. If I hadn't let him take those risks, he'd still be alive." She lived in guilt, and he lived in grief. But Tristan would hold her and say, gently, "Olivia, Tyler is your son, and Derek's. If anything ever happened to you, who would take care of him? He needs you. He needs his mom." Tristan brought Tyler home with him. During Olivia's recovery, he kept their son close. As she slowly healed, she began painting again, her calmed with every brushstroke. When the day finally came for her to come home, she was quieter but stronger. Tyler, however, had become eerily silent, too well behaved. Olivia treated him like something fragile, something sacred. She couldn't bear to raise her voice at him, let alone discipline him. Tristan made a point to eat dinner at home with them every night, watching Olivia paint, and Tyler quietly assemble puzzles on the carpet. Life started to feel peaceful again. Until Tyler turned 6. That afternoon, Tristan asked his assistant to pick up some documents from the house. When she arrived, Olivia snapped. She pointed at the assistant and screamed that she was trying to steal her husband. The housekeeper called, panicked. "Sir, Mrs. Hayes isn't well. She keeps saying she needs to take Tyler to find the younger Mr. Hayes." Tristan instructed them to keep a close eye on her, but in the span of just a few minutes, both Olivia and Tyler vanished. He checked the security cameras. Olivia had driven off with Tyler. He never made it in time. By the time he found them, the car was wrecked. Blood covered Olivia's body. Her face was shattered, unrecognizable. She was already gone. Tyler was passed out in the back seat, alive but unconscious. Police reviewed the dashcam footage. At first, Tristan refused to believe what he was seeing. Olivia had been completely lucid. Right before the crash, she looked calmly into the lens and whispered, "Tristan, I'm going to take Tyler to see Derek now. He's waiting for us." She had planned it. Every part of it. Tristan sat in stunned silence. His body numb, his heart frozen. She really meant to take Tyler with her. After the accident, Tyler woke up, but his memories were incomplete. He only remembered seeing his mother yelling after Tristan's assistant visited. In his mind, that was the reason she left. From that day on, Tyler blamed Tristan. And Tristan let him. He'd rather be hated than allow Tyler to learn the horrible truth. Tyler changed after that. Once so quiet, he became defiant. Anything Tristan told him not to do, he did. He was just like Derek. Same fire, same recklessness. He failed every exam. When Tristan Hayes looked at her resume, he chuckled softly. After Derek and Olivia passed away, he had pledged 10% of the Hayes Group's annual profit to charity grants for disabled children, scholarships for outstanding students, infrastructure in impoverished areas. He believed in karma. He hoped that, maybe in their next lives, Derek and Olivia would have a better start, and that their son, Tyler, would be protected and loved. Hattie might love money, yes, but she was respectful, grateful, and kind. He didn't dislike her at all. If anything, she had helped Tyler change. What he hadn't expected was for her to unravel the complex bond between himself, Derek, and Tyler. He had underestimated the younger generation. He always thought Tyler was still a boy. But that boy turned out to be sharp, intuitive, and deeply sensitive. The day Tyler found out the truth, he stormed into the Hayes Group headquarters. His first question caught Tristan completely off guard. "Am I your real son?" There was fear in his eyes. Real fear, like a wounded animal just trying to survive. Tristan was stunned. Then he flicked Tyler's forehead lightly and grumbled, "Do you really think I'd hand over a multi-billion-dollar empire to someone not family?" For the first time in years, Tyler gripped his hand tightly and laughed so hard, his eyes turned to crescents. In that moment finally, Tristan felt like a father. For that, he would always be grateful to Hattie, but he never expected Tyler to fall in love with her. Or worse, end up in a police station because of her. At first, he thought it was just misplaced gratitude, that Tyler didn't know the difference between admiration and affection. So he separated them. When Hattie returned to the city with her brother, Tristan knew Tyler would go looking for her, again. And he was right. But Hattie was smart. She turned Tyler down immediately. Still, Tristan quietly asked Trent Vu to find the best orthopedic specialist for her brother. That was all he could do for her. He thought Tyler would rebel, but the boy said nothing. He stayed in his room the entire night. The next morning, with dark circles under his eyes, Tyler came to him and said, "Dad, I need 6 top tutors. I'm going to apply to Hayes University." And he meant it. It turns out, talent really did run in the Hayes bloodline. Tyler got in, top 1%. And the moment that made Tristan most proud, he chose business management as his major. Once he entered college, Tristan started bringing him into Hayes Group meetings. Tyler grew steadier by the day. Some business partners even floated marriage proposals for their daughters, but Tristan refused them all. He still couldn't forget Derek and Olivia, and he couldn't stomach forcing love. In Tyler's sophomore year, during Tristan's 50th birthday, Tyler gave him a hand-carved wooden pig. Tristan was born in the year of the pig. It was ugly, and it was perfect. He nearly cried. Then Tyler leaned in and whispered, "Dad, I know you're not my biological father." Tristan froze. Anger flared in his chest until Tyler added, "But you'll always be my father." Later, Tristan found out that Tyler had secretly done a DNA test and even questioned his grandmother about the past. The boy knew everything. And he had grown up. That afternoon, Tristan's phone rang. It was Tyler. "Old man," he joked. "Hattie and I are in Denver. Do you need anything? Want us to bring you back a race car?" Tristan chuckled. It had been a while since he'd heard Tyler sound so happy. The boy was testing him, gauging his reaction. So he said, "I'd like to live a few more years, thanks. But if you two are happy, enjoy yourselves. And Tyler, if you marry that girl and give me a grandchild, now that would be the best gift you could ever give me." On the other end of the call, he heard Hattie gasp. "Mr. Hayes, what did you just say?" Then Tyler's loud, gleeful laugh followed. "You hear that, babe? He wants to be Grandpa Pig." Tristan laughed. "Yes, I do. One named Jer, one named Bean, anything you want. But if you don't give me grandkids soon, don't bother coming home." There was silence. He grinned and ended the call. Then he turned to the old photo on his desk, the one of 3 kids under a cherry blossom tree. He whispered, "Derek, Olivia, don't worry. Your son's doing great, and so am I. We're all okay now. But in my next life, I still want to be your big brother. And I'll protect you all over again." Dear listeners, today's emotional love story comes to a close. If it touched your heart, please don't forget to like, share, and leave a comment. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you haven't already, subscribe to our YouTube channel to support our team in bringing more tender, unforgettable stories to life. Wishing you endless joy, gentle days, and a heart always filled with love. Until we meet again in the next story, take care and stay inspired.